Hi, boxing fans around the world, and welcome to another episode with myself, Christian, and Graham. Now, naturally, this week we've been talking about the big fight, number 3 between Deontay Wilder and, of course, Fury. Now, this is happening on a Saturday. Throughout the week so far, we've been going through breaking down in pieces. I'm going off topic quite often, but who's got the advantage in the power, who's got the best chin, who's got the best corner. And the idea with today is we're going to put it all together. And with it being Thursday and the fight just 2 days away, we're going to give an absolute clear prediction and hopefully what should be happening. And as we have been talking throughout the week, there has been some information which has been quite helpful because I haven't been a lot on social media, unfortunately, this week, and a lot of things that I didn't know or missed or didn't even think about from Graham. And of course, that information I've been very thankful for. But today, it's something that has been apparently chopping and changing quite a lot in the background with who are the judges, who is the ref, etc. And Graham has got that information today, and hopefully we can gain a little bit more insight about what's going to happen with possibly the referee, if the referee is going to be having a part within the fight, or depending if it's a physical fight, I think the third fight is going to be. It should be interesting, and obviously with the judges as well, and where they come from. Obviously, with Fury being British and Wilder being American. So, Graham, so far, what do we know, and with how it is at the moment? Because I know it has chopped and changed, but as of today, with it being Thursday, who is what?
According to my sources, referee Russell Mora has replaced Connecticut's Mike Ortega, who was actually lined up to host the fight on July 24th. And that's not the only change surrounding the Fury Wilder fight, because they've also announced New Jersey's Steve Weisfeld will come in as a replacement for Patricia Jarman, taking over as a new judge, while the other two original judges remain, Tim Cheatham and Dave Moretti. All, from what I can tell, are incredibly experienced judges. And the ref has, shall we say, a slight blemish on his record. Let me quote from an article in Ring TV. Nearly 2 years later, so roughly speaking, a while ago, Russell Mora is still bothered by the memory of the headlines from Abner Mares' controversial unanimous decision over Joseph Akbiko, which happened in Las Vegas 10 years ago. And that was, so he has a bit of a blemish on his record with respect to not calling repeated low blows during that contest. I would assume over those 10-year periods, he's certainly, according to BoxRec, if we all take a quick look, he's certainly handled some of the bigger fights. Just for example, this past August did the Manny Pacquiao Yordenis Ugas fight. So he's done some big fights. He should be up to the task. Back in June, he did the Naoya Inoue versus Michael Desmarinas fight. So he is professional and competent. And if you do your Googling on the other three judges, which I'm happy to give you a bit of background about, but they all seem incredibly competent as well.
Where are the three judges from?
America.
All American.
All American.
Interesting, because I thought, and especially with the controversy with the first bout, obviously with the scoring, where because it did go the distance, obviously the general idea was that Fury was the winner. I thought, with the bout being in America again for the third time, that there would have been a British judge, at least one of them brought in to have one American, one British, one neutral. But with that said, and I'm saying this kind of in jest, you wouldn't want any of the usual lineup of the English referees at the moment, because the controversy in which they've been creating with some horrendous decisions lately over the past few months, it has been diabolical. So if it was going to have been one of the usual suspects, if you want to put it that way, that would have been very disappointing. I just hope that the referee is a physical referee, because I do think this fight is going to be a more physical one compared to the other two. In fact, sorry, physical not being the right word. I think it's going to be a more evenly matched physical fight. It's certainly not going to be, I think, a replay of the first one, and I don't think it's going to be a complete beatdown from Fury. Put the two together. This is sitting on the fence with what's going to happen, and we'll break this down a little bit more later on. But it will be an amalgamation of fight one, fight two, mixed together, but it's going to make a bit of a physical fight. And the referee, and this is one thing that could be a factor, because you're going to need a big, strong referee in there. Now, I'll be honest with you, hands up in the other chap. I wish I could have checked this further. I would like to know what his physical stature is, because at the end of the day, you've got Wilder, who is 6'7", and you've got Fury, which is 6'9". And the combined weight for these two, bearing in mind we don't know what the weights are and how they're going to be coming in, so obviously it could be a big fluctuation. But okay, there's a lot of weight in there, and if it's going to be physical, if it's going to be draining, if you're going to need to separate them, if it's going to be that kind of dogfight, which it well could be, and is my suspicion, then the ref is going to be a factor in this one, because you could have the Wilder camp saying Fury could be leaning on him too much. If that would be, say, for example, a technique to wear out the smaller man, obviously with Fury being so big. I'd be curious. Tomorrow's, I think, going to at least tick one of the boxes to how the fight may go is with the weights of the two respective fighters, but we'll cover that later. But interesting, the ref, because I thought it would have been one of the top 5, at least top 10 more notable refs in there, and I thought there would have been a UK judge in there as well, which is a little bit puzzling, bearing in mind the controversy from the first fight, because I'm sorry, it did go with the points. I know you've got my feelings with, it's a 2-1 fight, and obviously, most refs would have stopped the fight, obviously, after that heavy knockdown in the last round, but it did go the distance. Fury should have won that fight by decision, clearly. It didn't happen, and I'm just surprised that no, nobody from Britain in there. Shocked.
The ref, just quickly glancing over his record here, who has been refereeing professionally since the late 90s. Just for example, last year, he reffed the Lomachenko-Lopez fight, and also earlier in this year, talk about heavyweights, he did the Jared Anderson Kingsley Ibe fight. He's based in Las Vegas. I'm telling you, I don't know how physically big he is. He seems like how do I say this? Certainly a veteran, but old. Is he going to be big? I don't think so, to answer that question. But in terms of the judges on hand, let me give you this line. Weisfeld, the fellow who replaced the woman, is one of the sport's most respected judges, and has judged fights professionally for 29 years, since 1991. And Weisfeld was recently involved in 5 of Top Rank's fight cards in Las Vegas. So, when it comes to who these fellas are, and just so you know, Tim Cheatham, the other judge involved in this, his record speaks for itself as well. He's judged 486 bouts. This guy is very well respected. Just
fair few, but if they're all bantamweight, there's a bit of a. Out of curiosity, sorry for interrupting. Out of curiosity, which Lomachenko fight did he ref?
Oh, let me have a quick look here.
I think you said an early one, as long as it wasn't the.
No, 10th month. What's that? October? Oh, October 2020. So.
Oh, okay. As long as it wasn't his Lomachenko's second, was it the second or third bout when he went straight into a world title, and the reffing for that, was just awful. If that was going to be the ref again, that just would have been a whitewash, because that fight was completely manhandled and should never have been handled the way in which it did. Sorry, continue, Graeme.
All I'm saying is, I, in my humble opinion, and anyone can Google this, if you just take a quick look on BoxRec, under Russell Mora's, let's call it his resume, his boxing resume, he has handled some of the bigger fights over the past few years that have been, title fights. So, nothing but he bounces from weight class. So he's not stuck in one weight class. I really like what Boxing Scene had to say. I quoted earlier what they had to say about Weisfeld. Tim Cheatham, if you take a look at his resume. As I said, 486 bouts. Quickly, he did just earlier this year, the Victor Ortiz Robert Guerrero fight. He did the in July, the Jermel Charlo versus Castano fight. So he himself has judged quite a few of the title fights in the past year alone. Like just he was judging the Josh Taylor Jose Ramirez fight. He judged the Saul Alvarez Billy Joe Saunders fight. Just a few. I mean, this fella has been busy. So these guys, if you ask me now, the interesting thing about the judges, because I was curious about this too, and it took a bit of, like I said, it's not front page news. But speaking of front page news, the other third judge, Dave Moretti, he has a very, very, very interesting backstory in terms of losing his job, was unemployed when his wife was pregnant before they moved to Las Vegas and headed for a fresh start. So, but interestingly enough, I mean, he has done everyone from Roy Jones Jr., Anthony Tarver, those kinds of fighters. And here's a quote from the Buffalo News, where he was originally from. He has presided over some of the most monumental bouts over the past 25 years. His first big title fight was the epic Larry Holmes-Jerry Cooney clash in 1982. So in terms of fight experience, these guys aren't, shall we say, featherweights. I think they're very well respected, purposely chosen. And I think...
How old is he?
How old is he? That was a good one. Moretti was 59 when this article was written in 2004. So add 17 years to 59. I don't know, 70 something. He's pretty old.
Interesting. Well, at least you haven't got Adelaine Bird in the lineup neither, because that would be a disaster. But I haven't seen so much of her recently anyway, after all those ludicrous decisions that she's given over the past few years. But no, it's good that it's not any of the usual suspects from the UK. We haven't got Adelaine Bird in the lineup, but I still think that it should be, to be fair, it should be, and I always think it should be, with this being UK, US, it should be one from each with one neutral. I'm surprised the Fury camp haven't stipulated that. And still this time, it's Thursday. There has been some shifts around, as you said earlier. It could all well change yet.
So, okay, the only reason I was bringing that up is because we had brought it up yesterday, and neither of us actually knew who the ref or the judges were. So I did a bit of Googling, found out for us. I personally, okay, I'm in Canada, so I'm smack in the middle of Britain and America. So I think they're fair decisions in terms of why they were chosen, because they have incredibly good, lengthy resumes. Credentials are well respected. Mini minor blemish on Russell Mora's career when he wasn't calling low blows during one specific fight quite a few years ago. But other than that, incredible resumes from them all. We won't need the judges. That's a great comment.
Well, it works both ways. Good point. But it could do, because if it does go the way the first,
Right.
fight went, we will do. And the thing is that we do not know. And this is what I said yesterday. And it's one of these things with these fights. It's not like you've got two top athletes that's got no history of having to drop weight, come up weight, or out the ring for ages, or this, that, and the other, or drained, or that, it's not like two middleweights that what's going to come to the ring, and based on everything that's there in front of you, you can work out generally such who the winner's going to be. There's so many, again, with this one, intangibles with what's going to happen. There's so many questions that need to be answered, and that will come into play, I think, for the press conference yesterday, because with what Malik Scott was saying, and I used that word in the right way, saying they are going to be trying, and the whole point is the camp, Malik Scott is trying to pull out of the subconscious. Now we're going quite sort of correct with the wording here. The boxing attributes in which Wilder did have years ago. And this is what I said exactly the same the other day, where he has a boxing background. He was a bronze medalist. You can't get that by not being reasonable at boxing, but he's never had to change or improve because the one punch power that's been there from day zero and carried him through and bailed him out in each respective fight, obviously apart from Bermain Stavern in the first fight.
Right.
Now, if they manage to do what they say, it's going to be a very good fight, and that's when I would say, well, if that's going to happen, he can prove that he can do that. Definitely a Wilder win. But again, if it's not going to be a Fury blast out and it's somewhere between the two and it gets messy, it's a bit of a shootout, then the problem is, will Wilder, even if he has learned how to box better and set up the punches better, is he going to return back to old form when that happens? Or is it there clearly out the subconscious into the conscious mind, and he will be able to box accordingly, whether that be from the word go in the first round or when the going gets tough? That is one question that needs to be answered, and nobody can answer that one until fight night.
You know what I'm curious about, having thought about the other controversy that's arisen. I'm curious as to whether or not Wilder will come out in a Speedo, given his comments about his legs being a little tired with all that heavy boxing short.
I was going to come into that later on. Right, here we go again. Right,
you just reminded me of some of the.
I see the comment here. Audley Harrison got a medal. Yes, it's a gold medal.
Yeah.
He was a good boxer. Otherwise, he would not have got a gold medal. Carl, you cannot go through the amateur system, whether it be a bad year, better year, or a harder year, without being a good boxer. He was a good boxer, and I'm choosing my words exactly here, not great, not elite. Therefore, because he was a good boxer, that's why he won the European Championship. That's why he had, and that is his past tense, a lot of money in the bank. But at the end of the day, he was a good boxer, and he got a gold medal accordingly. He even won at the prize fighter twice. He can box well. He just didn't transfer from the amateur system over to the professional system in the correct way because he was managing himself, and he made incorrect decisions on many levels, including training. Therefore, been able to improve him from an amateur to professional. But was he a good boxer? Yes, he was a good boxer. Not great, not elite. No, that's why he wasn't a world champion or was one of the greatest. No, he was a good boxer, and a gold medal and a European title reflected that. So that's it with Audley Harrison, because God, I've seen people sort of bring that up a number of times. You cannot say that. Somebody that gets a medal, whether it be bronze, silver, gold, you are a good boxer, plain and simple, whether it be a weaker Olympics or whether it be a harder one, because it does vary, but you have to go through such a system, such a lengthy period of time with all the box offs, etc., to get there. So nobody can say he is a bad boxer. Sorry, I just had to put that point to rest there.
Good, thank you.
Sorry, just because Wilder got a medal doesn't mean he has skills. Yes, he did have. You cannot get a bronze medal and have no boxing skills.
Right.
Categorically, no. Categorically impossible. Simple fact. It's how boxing works. Now, where I'm agreeing is that the boxing skills didn't, and this is the whole point I'm trying to make with all of this, is that he hasn't needed to improve. Let me put this on properly. Right, he hasn't needed to improve since moving over to the professionals because his punches always bailed him out. And I said this the other day, and this is what Malik Scott said in the press conference, and what they're trying to do is the correct thing, which gives me a little bit more confidence in what they're doing. At least they recognize what is lacking. But it's just that good old question about what they have practiced, what the theory is, and all the rest of it. Will it transpire that way and be an effective tool on the night against Fury? Question mark. Sorry, I just had to put that one to bed as such.
So we've gone through all the various tangible and intangible aspects, we believe anyway, of the fight, from the training, nutrition, mental health. And by the way, speaking of your Google whatever enabled phone listening to you, unbelievably, my top news item in my Google News on my phone today was the mental health issues that had come up quite a few years ago. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. Complete sidebar, I apologize, but I couldn't believe that the very first news, it's not even news, but the news item in my feed today was Tyson Fury's mental health issues, which, by the way, I read, and he blames it, his mental health condition, he blames on drinking too much and doing too much cocaine. He admits it. So,
well, his father has gone on record to say that he has it, and yes, mental health, as a rule, not always, but is hereditary, and you can see similarities with the two. You know, it's his mental health, all of that. This is the only effect that can have with the fight is if the going gets tough, because again, as I said yesterday, and it applies to Wilder with the two respective fighters, and it's putting the two of them down at the same time. I don't favor one personally over the other, and I know a lot of people would shoot me for this, but you know, let's go over to Wilder first. Going into the first Fury bout, so take Fury out the equation. Who is the best record? What's the best win on his record? You'd have to say Luis Ortiz. Okay, so how many tough, we call it layman's terms, how many tough fights has he been in? One fight, Luis Ortiz, that is it. Now moving over to Fury. How many tough fights has he had? Well, the Klitschko Fury was at his best. That was, I still think, his best performance of his career. He was at his peak at that point. As far as a boxer goes, and as far as a heavyweight boxing goes, you don't see that. That only comes around once every few years. And this is no fault of Fury's, and it's no fault of Wilder's, I think, is the fact that, again, with Fury, as far as hard fights where you go through adversity to prevail, how many hard fights has Fury had? And the answer is 0. Cunningham, absolutely. But the problem was Cunningham decked Fury, and people say, "Oh, he's weak chin," because you know that the guy who was next cruiserweight champion, Steve Cunningham, is only because he crouched down, and Tyson can struggle with smaller fighters coming up. And I think the 3 knockdowns in his career is that one, and there's only been 2 more of being people that have come down from a low coming up, and that's why nothing to do with chins. Fury's got very good chin, as obviously demonstrated, but he's not had to. That wasn't a heavy knockdown. He hasn't had pretty much with the Cunningham fight. I think that Fury came into it, took control, and then it finished, if I remember right, in the 6th round. Could have been the 7th. I think it's the 6th round. That was the fight I told you, which I had money on for Cunningham actually winning. Not that I thought he was actually going to win, but the odds were so long. And he had Fury down in the first round. I mean, I was standing up and doing cartwheels because the odds, I can't remember what it was something like 14-1 or whatever. And I just think it's those kind of fights are worth, if you're going to do it, putting money on those kind of odds. But no, Fury hasn't been in a hard fight, you know, give and take. And this is why I think that if it goes this way, and I do think I just got my little crystal ball, which can be wrong, like it can do for all of us. I do think it's going to be a physical fight. That is one thing I think, you know, with it being a combination of 1 and 2, I think it's going to be a physical fight. I think that Wilder is going to be the one that's going to be coming in who can improve more, because Fury's mastered boxing. Fury mastered how to beat down Wilder. You know, I think there's nothing else to add to what he's got in his toolbox. Wilder can only improve or not improve. So with all these intangibles, putting it into the mix, I think it's going to be a physical fight. I think it's going to be a closer fight. And in a dog fight, what would you want to call it? A slugfest, or going into the trenches, whatever terminology you want to use, it's going to be a harder fight. And both of them have got minimal experience of hard fights and prevailing. And, you know, when you were just talking about the mentality side, I think with either fighter, anything can happen, because both of them in their both respective ways are, I was about to say mentally fragile. No, just unpredictable. That's the word I should be using. Both of them are unpredictable. One may be a little bit more than other for different reasons, and they're both unpredictable in their own ways. You know, it could be some kind of crazy finish to this fight, where it's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth one way or the other. It might be unsatisfactory. People might be calling out for a fourth fight. No, thank you. 3's enough. I just got a funny feeling that, you know, we're going to come away from the fight and it's not going to be, that's it, done and dusted, no more. There's going to be some kind of incident, wrong word, but controversy. There's going to be some controversy there. Now, see with the comments, Fury has more heart. Yes, demonstrated, but you can't say Wilder hasn't, only because he hasn't been put in that situation flat on his back and with something up in the sky lifting him up and coming back from about the heaviest knockdown you could ever come back from. Fury has that big tick absolutely by his name. Wilder, you don't know. But based on, and this is why we're talking about the chin as well yesterday, is that from that Fury second fight, that Wilder does have a good chin. Fury hit him with some real clubbing hard shots. Yes, he lost. Yes, it was a gradual beatdown. The punch that put him down in the second or the third round, whichever one it wasn't like a punch to chin he went down. It was a club from the top, and it was a club in hand from the top that had a lot of weight behind it, and that's why he went down and landed up bursting his eardrum, whatever the damage was. But he's got a good chin. He doesn't go down easy. Luis Ortiz, but that was one fight where he's had to come back from adversity. But that is about it. So I think that if it goes to the trenches, this is what I'm trying to get at now, without going too off course. If it goes down to the trenches, either one of them might have some kind of frailty, and you might, it wouldn't surprise me if just one of them all of a sudden jacked it. I just think there's going to be something unsatisfactory with the conclusion of the fight. Just a feeling, just that crystal ball, which can be wrong.
Well, I think what we've ascertained in our discussions is that Wilder had more to learn after that beatdown, quite frankly, with respect to his, shall we call it, fighting style. He is well known, or was well known, to rely on his rather emphatic right hand. So he had more to learn. And has he been taught what he needs now to beat Fury? That is the question. I would argue yes. I would argue that for all the reasons we've mentioned in our previous discussions, if I were a betting man, I would bet on, and I will say that being the underdog, so I'm going against the grain, if you will. I think Wilder is going to win this fight, but I think he will actually score a knockout. I think he's intending on knock. And the reason I say this is because of the training videos that were shown online, which we haven't seen from the Fury camp, absolutely demonstrating how effectively he's going to move from the liver shots up the body to the head and defending in the meanwhile. And this has nothing to do with, I was born in England, so it's nothing against the English, Carl. I just simply think that Wilder had more to learn since his beatdown by Fury. I think he has learned what he needs to learn in terms of boxing skills. And if you put those together in his arsenal with that wicked right, he has a chance, and I believe he'll execute to knock out Fury. That's my prediction.
Okay, with mine, and I will give an outright decision instead of sitting on the fence. The sitting on the fence side of it comes into play with, as I said yesterday, my head says Fury, and it's like the Joshua Usyk one. Joshua, my head said Joshua. He's got the physical advantages. He just didn't use them, obviously, on the night. And I did predict Usyk would win. The crystal ball actually worked that night, which is good. And again, it's the same with this one. Fury should win. Well, effectively, he won the last one, so the natural conclusion is he wins again. But just looking into it, and again, it's more of a gut feeling as opposed to my head saying that this should be happening, and I'll go with Fury winning the fight. I just think that you've got Wilder is the only one that can really improve. Fury doesn't need to improve as such from the first fight. And it's the second fight rather. And it's all down to as well, with the disruption, with the time off, whether Fury can actually repeat exactly what he did in that first fight. Because you've got to remember that, they last fought, the second fight was what? It was January or February 29th of last year, either one. But there's been, coming up to 2 years since the two of them have both fought. And when you have the time off will favor, or should I say, it will hurt the boxer more than the puncher. 1 second, I just need to slap my dog because she is biting me. Stop it. They're sharp teeth, believe me. Yes, the time off will affect the boxer more. So taking that into consideration, I don't personally buy into how they look on the internet because that could be a true reflection of what is happening, or it could be a complete lost leader, red herring, however you want to put it. Fury
Sure.
releasing it could be a bad thing, or it could be a good thing. But hearing there was trouble, and as I said, I did double check that because I thought that was the case. There was issues in the Fury camp initially. It wasn't as harmonious, regardless of it being good now, which it appears it was. It's not as harmonious as it was the first time around with Sugar Hill Steward. With this training, stopping, restarting, again, that the whole procedure and the way it's being called off and put back, that will favor the puncher as well, even if Wilder is trying to box more. With all this into the pot, I have to say that I do think that a banana skin is going to take place again, and I think that Wilder is going to upset the odds. But the head says Tyson. That crystal ball, I'm not going to say heart again, but the crystal ball says Wilder, and I cannot shift. And it's just, anybody can give an easy prediction for this because it's either you've got a 50% chance of getting it right. So anyone that goes, oh yeah, plucking out thin air, yeah, it's going to be Fury or Wilder or whatever, they're either going to be right or wrong. So, there's going to be a lot of people out there saying, oh, Harsey, I've got it right. Well, I think my daughter would probably say, because she's never heard of Wilder and she's heard of Fury, she'd probably say Fury. So... And the other thing which I'm going to briefly bring up, and this is when but I do have some strong beliefs with this, is the glove gate situation, or more precisely, because I don't think there's any weights, because with how it works with the inspection, going to the ring and coming to the time of actually that the first bell goes, you cannot add weights into a glove. That is physically impossible if they have been checked correctly in the dressing room. But what you can do is you can manipulate the glove. And I still think, I'm never going to say that this definitely happened or that definitely happened, but I do think there was something, in inverted brackets, wrong with the gloves. Now, I've had this discussion and a near heated discussion with a friend of mine because he says, absolutely not. He said to me, to do this kind of thing, there's got to be history of it. And I said, yes, there is history, and it's categorically undeniable history. When I told you about the situation with the fight with Kristian Hamer, where the glove was passed in the changing room. By the time they got to the ring, the thumb was off of the glove, and the bout was delayed because they had to change the glove or gloves, whether it be just one or they did the whole fresh two. I don't know that particular fight. So there is possibly, and I'm choosing my words right, history of glove manipulation there. Question mark. I can't say definitely yes. Only a handful of people can say definitely yes or definitely no because they're not there. But when, and I'm going to use this example again because it is a very good example. When you take my mum, a 79-year-old, and put her in front of the TV, and you say to this 79-year-old, what can you tell me, if there is anything at all, is wrong with what is going on now? I didn't even say, look at the gloves. Could you see anything strange? Is there any? She said, and this was the second bout, and this was moments before it was stopped. It wasn't slow motion or anything. She said, oh, there's something wrong with his gloves. A 79-year-old said that. Thrown into the pot with this, you have got sparring partners and the trainer of a couple of the other fighters that were in the gym at the same time, showing gloves with padding taken out. Now, a lot of people jump on that fact and they say, absolutely, see, because it's happened there, that happened in the pro ring. I don't believe that's the case because you cannot take it out come fight time, because if it's passed correctly, you cannot take it out before the fight. And that could be a sparring partner, or it could be somebody that was shafted by, I'm just talking hypothetically here, by the Fury team. And that could be a bit of payback or something. You just don't know what goes behind them. There's only a handful of people that truly know. But the only thing I'm going to say is there are, choose my words right again, a possibility of something that was not right. And that cannot be argued to the point this was brought up in the judgment, when you had obviously whether the third fight should happen between the two, and with the arbitration. And in the evidence that was given, it was submitted back. There were fights that were given to the judge, apparently, where they had clips going back to the Christian Hamer fight, which was either one or a couple of fights before he challenged Klitschko. And obviously the video which I've sent over to you with the thumb that was off. I mean, how did that happen? A judge, and judges should get things right, showed enough proof for that to be a major factor in the decision for a third fight to take place. The good thing is, regardless what happened, people can say crazy for that, or absolutely, because there's people both sides, or I'm literally in between, because if you cannot say categorically what did happen or didn't happen, nobody can, apart from that team, and that is it. And only maybe even a whole team didn't know. It could be just a couple of people that did something. You do not know. Nobody can say yes or no. There was possibly something. But again, this is something that's got to be answered on the night. And this is what I said to a good friend of mine. I said, at the end of the day, if Fury goes in there, because all gloves are going to be checked, any form, at each stage, whether it be checked in the dressing room, leaving the dressing room, entering the ring, about to fight, and just before that bell's ring, it's going to be quadruple, triple checked, all the rest of it. There can be no cries of foul play whatsoever. And if Fury can repeat what he did in that second fight, or he looks as heavy-handed, then all those claims of skullduggery could be put to rest. But it's just something else. The reason why I've just brought it up is just another question mark, because, and this is why, when deciding with who's going to win or not going to win, bear in mind it could be one punch that could just reverse everything anyway. And then somebody can say, oh, yes, I got it right. It could be a lucky punch. But just throwing this again into the pot, where it's Wilder is going to be the only one that can improve in this fight. And even if he's not going to be the second coming of Muhammad Ali or something, but if he could improve just that little bit, and I believe that Fury is not going to he's not going to come into the fight as good or as effective he was in the second fight, just because some of the factors with, as I said earlier, with the time out the ring, the disturbed training, again, that's going to favor the puncher as opposed to the boxer, and all these factors, you have to lean towards a more even fight. That's why I think it's going to be a slugfest. And if it is a slugfest, if it's going to be a hard fight, I can only think, and I'm one for banana skins at the moment, that Wilder is going to land that. It won't be a lucky punch, but he will land, he will connect, and he will win. That is what my gut is saying, or the crystal ball, but my head says Fury, because he should do like AJ should have done, really, with Usyk. And in the rematch with AJ and Usyk, I would say, again, Usyk's going to win, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's a lot closer. There's controversy in that fight and whatever. But I think, again, with that fight, it's AJ is the one, again, that could only improve. You're not going to get much more from Usyk apart from something that's completely different. Like he said, if they had a rematch, he would come in with a completely different game plan. And he said there's so much more to come from him. And I wouldn't doubt that that is the case. But based on just what we see, and that could just be talk, because fighters do, we all do, we all talk crap, whatever. If it's crap, it might not be, whatever. I just think that in the rematch, again, AJ is the only one that could improve as opposed to Usyk, because he doesn't need to, because that was him on running on all engines with the correct game plan. He won the bout. But I think if they had a rematch, I'd say Usyk again, but AJ should make it more competitive if he uses all of his attributes more effectively. And I think Fury will, but it's going to be a closer fight. It's going to be a closer physical fight. I think it's going to be draining, physical. You watch what's going to happen is you're going to get a KO in the first round after saying all of this. Blah, 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 blah. No, first round, either way, whatever. Anything can happen. This is boxing, and this is why we love it. Certainly is for me, because it is unpredictable. Unless you go in and watching a mismatch, and I hate those fights where you go in, you just know who is going to win. I hate those fights. You don't know that with this fight, and this is why the fight card is so good. Efia Jagbar versus Frank Sanchez, both unbeaten. both got pedigree. It's not a proven pedigree, and a lot of thoughts about who is going to win and who is not going to win that fight is based on how we perceive they are and what they're capable of as fighters, because you haven't seen what they can do against higher echelon fighters. Echelon fighters. So that's based on gut feeling, and I think Jagber should win that, but it wouldn't surprise me with Sanchez, because you've got a puncher versus the boxer. The Cuban is well schooled, he's very good, but untested. A Jagber, heavy puncher, untested. So you're going into a bit of the dark with that fight. And what else is there? The fight under that, you've got the Kaunaki and Helenius rematch as well. Helenius won the first one by knockout. With this one, I'm going to say Kaunaki by knockout, because Helenius over the past few years, or up until he had that break from boxing, because he went out of it, he was still, and that was after the Derek Chisora fight, where Chisora should have won it. It was abroad. I don't know if you've seen that fight. It was a very good one. One of the best performances, I think, from Chisora ever. And that was his first fight after his bout with Vitaly Klitschko, where he lost on points for the WBC title. He was a very good fight, as in Helenius, a very good fighter. But the problem is, after that fight, he just went a bit of a stride. I'd love to know the reason why. Went away. He came back. Since coming back, he then lost to Dillian White, and then has been sort of knocked out by 2 or 3 fighters, and has looked a shot fighter. Now, he won the first fight with Kaunaki, but even in doing so, to me, he looked very rickety on his legs. I should definitely be pro him if I'm going to be patriotic, whatever, but he was very wobbly on his legs. He looked a shot fighter, but he caught Kaunaki. Kaunaki didn't recover. Kaunaki lost. With that one, again, it's only Kaunaki that can get it right, can come in fitter, instead of thinking he was going to wipe out Helenius. That, for me, is a Kaunaki win as well. I think a Jagber is going to win that fight. My prediction for Helenius losing against Kaunaki, and I think Wilder is going to KO Fury. And I think under some kind of unhappy circumstances with complaints from the opposing team, whichever way it goes. How do you see the undercard as well?
Absolutely. It's going to be a great night. And it was all set up because it's your birthday. So I like what our chatters are doing in the chat room. I mean, they're saying the exact same thing. Wilder, without a doubt, has that great punch and an opportunity to score a knockout. We all agree, Fury being the better boxer. So, but again, my decision came down to personalities, and like you're saying, flip the coin. So I'm flipping the coin, but I'm predicting why, because I didn't like what Fury was saying. You might recall I said that a week or two ago, but I said, I just didn't like what he was saying in the press. I just didn't like, just how rude he could be. So I didn't like that level of chirping. And at the end of the day, for that reason alone, I'm hoping for Wilder to knock out Fury, knock him out and shut him up. That's it. I won't change. And by the way, by round 3. Why? Because Wilder has to come out fast and furious, as opposed to Anthony Joshua, who should have done the same thing and taken advantage of his reach early in that match, and he didn't, and he lost. So
this is where I disagree, and be interesting, obviously, to see what's going to happen at the weekend. I think it's going to go later, and I think it's going to go into the mid part, into the second sort of 6th, 7th, 8th round, and it gets a bit woolly, a bit untidy, and I think that's where the conclusion either way is going to happen. I think if Fury is going to win, it will be probably slightly later, just because he won't be as effective as he was in that second fight. I just can't see, with everything I discussed earlier, the time off, disrupted training, mindset, all the rest of it, I can't see him being as effective as the second fight, even if he wins.
Right.
And I just think Wilder could be the more effective. I don't think it's going to happen early. I can see where you're coming from with that because, it's like with AJ, as you said, for him to beat Usyk, one trail of thought is he's got to come out early and start banging. But the problem is that I think, in my opinion, that can fall into Usyk's trap as well.
Right.
Because he would have been more than, with his A plan and B plan, whatever. He didn't know how Joshua was going to come out. Yeah, there were lots of reports about Joshua being light. So the assumption was that he was going to come in and box, which he did. But it could have been a complete lost leader, and he could have come out and just, tried to blitz him. As it appears, is what he should have done because he lost, boxing the boxer. But I still think if he comes out and blasts, I think that'd be playing into Usyk's hand, and I think he should still go for a distance win. Sorry, it's going off the topic of Fury Wilder, but there's some parallels with the two.
Right.
And this is why so many people have been so split over who is going to win, who isn't, even if there was a categoric favourite in both respective fights going in. Obviously, Joshua was the huge, was he a huge favourite? He certainly was the favourite anyway. And Fury with this one. And I can see why the odds are for Fury because he should win. He's got the last fight they had was a 7-round beatdown. He should win, absolutely. But it's just the set of circumstances surrounding it that I just think is going to dictate and change what should be a Fury victory to a possible Wilder victory. And that possibility I'm leaning towards 60-40, 55-45. Probably wrong. But as I said earlier, this is why we love boxing, because you cannot say, nobody can say, because whoever you think is going to win, and it could be round 9, 10, whatever in a championship fight, 11th to 12, and it could be how you thought it was going to go, but the other person could turn around and just catch him with a lucky punch. So that is everything that you have said correctly out the window. Anything can happen. That is why we love the sport, because unless it's a mismatch, you cannot tell. It is great, and that's why I specifically love it. I just hate mismatches I'll never watch. But this has got me excited, and a lot of people say, no, we don't want to see this fight. I really do, because of the intangibles with this. I'm more excited for this one as I was, compared to AJ versus Usyk.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I just wanted to add to it. The weight is going to be very interesting, as I said yesterday. I think that a lot of people would probably say suicide for taking this approach, but I do think Wilder should come in lighter than he was last time, because in that second fight, career heaviest, regardless, he clearly lost that fight. I think every round he clearly, and that was a beatdown. He categorically lost, so he's got to do different to everything in the second round. And that formula for him, okay, to a certain degree, in the first fight with Fury, but in every other fight, that lightweight has worked against him. Yes, he hasn't come across somebody as physically imposing as Fury, but seeing the two respective weights of them will be, I think, very interesting. Like it was again with AJ Usyk. Usyk come in and he looked a proper heavyweight, and it's like with that fight again. It's time that passes that can help or hinder how a fight is going to go, because you had, like I said, it was just under a year between Usyk fighting last, which was against Derek Chisora, which was Halloween, so late October last year, and going through to the fight in September 25th. That was 11 months. Now that again helped Usyk because he grew more into a heavyweight instead of a cruiserweight with just some added on pounds. He looked physically different to he did in that fight a year ago, and that's something else that was working in his favor, and it's one of the reasons why I was leaning towards Usyk in that fight. And I just think it's circumstances, with the crystal ball that we try and look at, but all that crap can go out the window when the other person goes smack, one punch, done. Yeah. There was something else I wanted to bring up, and I cannot remember what it was. Referee, that was it. Just back to the referee. The referee again could have such a deciding factor over to this, and I'm just going to go back to the first fight. This ref and most refs would have waved off that fight with Fury on that horrendous knockdown in round 12. So I just think the ref is going to play an important part for this fight. Maybe some complaints from whoever loses, maybe, especially if it's a physical fight. I just think that's going to be a contributing factor somehow in some way, because from what you've said, as much as he's a very competent ref, you do need to handle these guys. And if it gets physical and they're going to be clinging on and it becomes a grueling fight, that's when refs can struggle. And I think you need it as much as Kenny Bayliss was the ref in the second fight. And Kenny Bayliss he was 69 then. I guess that's why he's now 70. So I guess that's why they didn't choose him again at some point. Even if you're good for your age, you've got to stop. No, interesting fight. I can't wait. I can't wait for the whole fight card. So for me, it's it could be easy because we've got a 50% chance of getting it right. But I'm going to go for Wilder just in an upset, and you are Wilder as well, and probably going to be not disappointed if it goes the other way. And emotionally, or from what I want from the fight, I want Wilder to win. Only I like Fury. I like Wilder, only because of how it's going to go beyond the fight if
Right.
Wilder wins, as far as the opening up. If Wilder wins, there's not going to be a fourth Fury fight. The winner of White versus Wallin is going to be next in line. And I think Dillian White is more than he's if he wins the fight with Wallin, which is definitely not a gimme. He's more than earned his shot, I think, at the title, and that'd be an interesting fight with Wilder and White if that happens. And I just think it opens that just up a little bit more because this is why a lot of English people will hate me for saying this, but I was sick and tired of just writing about Fury Joshua all the time, to the point, as I said yesterday, where I actually stopped writing about it. And it was typical that the first time I didn't write about it for months, and the day I did, it was cancelled the next day. I thought, that's sod's law. Because I could see something was going to happen, but it's getting close. I thought, well, okay, it's going to happen now. Start writing. It got cancelled the next day. It's just a funny little thing that happened to me with that one. I want to see the division, opened up, because you could have, if you had Fury versus AJ, and whoever wins, then there's going to be rematch clause again, and then it's just, it would have been. It's not so much a fight in demand now because Joshua's just lost. It'd be interesting if Fury did lose. You could have a fight of the losers as such. That has been mooted as one possibility, but I just think it just opened up the division. Long story cut short, if Wilder wins, and based on that, I want him to, because it's all been tied up with the same people for too long, and the headlines and negotiations that go on and on and on. And if Fury, for example, if they did announce Fury versus AJ, it would be whatever period time, and then you could have a delay, and then it's this again and that again. It just no, I've gone completely off that fight for many reasons. So I want Wilder to win. Hopefully he does. Nothing against either of the fighters in any way whatsoever. So Kalnaki to win, and I think Ijagba to win. That's my 3 predictions, and let's see if how wrong they are, because it is boxing. It's either going to be one or the other. An idiot can get it right. So, yeah, let's see.
Well, I'm certainly looking for the best versus the best, going toe to toe and having a great night out with my pals. We'll be down in Niagara Falls, which, if you look on a map, if you were to fly from Nottingham to Las Vegas, is probably, I'm going to hazard a guess, right smack in the middle, geographically speaking. So I'm going to be having a great time on Saturday night watching that entire card. And I hope you have a great time on your birthday as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very entertaining, without a doubt. And let's see what happens. We'll talk about it on Monday.
Absolutely. Apart from that, until then, have a good time. Enjoy the evening.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks very much.
See you later.
Thank you.